Hi, welcome to my office off the dining room here in Northeast Minneapolis. As I said, my name is Nat Case. I'm a freelance cartographer. I worked for 22 years as head of production for Hedberg Maps, map publishing company here in Minneapolis, and I've been freelance for the last 9 years. I do a lot of work doing maps for books. It's actually my favorite general area of making maps. I've been working for 6 or 7 years on maps for the Society of Architectural Historians via the University of Virginia Press. They have a series called The Buildings of the United States, and I've done, I think, 6. I think I might be on my 7th book now. I've actually lost count a little bit. I think that's number 7 is what I'm just starting to work on now. I've developed a workflow, which is what I wanted to talk to you about today. When I started working with them, they were black and white maps. This was the design scheme that I inherited. And over time, we've migrated that design. And we've also, in the last, this will be the 3rd book that's in full color. So I've designed a color scheme that works in full color. And this is the map that we'll mostly be using as the example as we talk further. So you see they want a number code for each building that they're going to talk about, or historic zone, or historic street that has historic corridors that have things on them. So that's basically what we want to end up with. Where I start is actually a tool called MyMaps, which I've found to be a very useful tool for extracting data, for generating data. I use it a lot when I'm talking with clients, and they have data that I don't know. I can't guarantee I can get easily. Small villages in Uganda was one I did last year. Historical ancient civilization sites in India or in the Near East is another one. In this case, stuff is very locatable. What I get from the client is a text list that has these code names, or code numbers rather, has the name of the site, has a street address, it usually has a little bit of a description. And there's also, they will usually give me a printout or a scan of a printout that someone has taken to Google Maps and said, this is where I want the map to be. I use it as a guideline. They may not turn out exactly how they thought, because they're just drawing a random rectangle rather than making it actually fit properly on a graphics page. But that's our starting point. So MyMaps is really simple to use. If you have, if you want to put a site on there, it could be a street address. It'll find the nearby street addresses. If you know if it's a name of a sort of thing that would be in the Google Maps listing, you can find that. And then once you've found it, if you get it even close to right, you can just add it to the map. If it's not exactly right, you can edit it. You can take it and move it to the point that you want. This is a little hard to read. I had this to this display so as you could see the ones overall, but you can also just use the regular Google Maps base as your search base. I also like for each individual one to not just edit the location, but to put in that code number that is going to be used on the final map. This will actually carry through all the way to the end, having the code embedded in this object. It allows you to create up to 10 layers in a given document. Google Maps documents are in Google Docs, or in Google Drive rather, they're Google Drive documents. So they're saved under your account name, your Gmail account, and Google Doc account, and so forth. And you can embed point objects. You can embed area objects like this one. You can embed linear objects like this one. And those are all object types that I use for this project, as I mentioned earlier. So once you've created a Google MyMaps set that you're working with, you can export it as a KML file. That's the trick that makes this all work so well. So you export it as a KML file, and then my next stage is to go to QGIS. And the reason I go to QGIS rather than going straight into MAPublisher and Illustrator is that I like to be able in Illustrator to position, to essentially create an area of coverage. And for that, I need to see not just where the objects that we're looking at, the featured points, but I want to see the whole background of streets and hydro and other stuff, so that, for example, I don't just cut it off the edge of the Silburn Arboretum here, but actually give it this road on the outside, and so forth. Just make it framed right. So what I'm doing is with QGIS is just creating a kind of a placeholder TIFF that I can use to create the area of coverage maps in Illustrator. Fairly basic thing. I import the data. This is how it imports. So each geometry type within a given layer imports separately. I apply labels so that I can see in the export what they are, and then I make sure that the entire document is projected how I want. I usually like pseudo Mercator. Regular Mercator would work too. I like pseudo Mercator because it's the exact same projection that the tile sets are, so they will always be clear and easy to read. So that's about it. I basically do that, and then from here I will export to a map. The default is as a GeoTIFF, and so I end up with a GeoTIFF with projection information encoded, and I go from there over to Illustrator. What I'll do for an Illustrator file is set up, zoom out so you can see here. The original setup is one artboard per map. I have a style sheet already set up in terms of graphic styles. I don't have them in this file, but I do have them. This is an early stage of the Maryland project before I had imported the style sheets. But I'll set them up with them named, each one for the map that they actually are, not just relying on the map numbers, because you can see they don't exactly match up. And then when I'm importing the GeoTIFFs, for example, I go back to 0 here. If I am looking at that area of coverage for the map we're looking at, this is actually one where we looked at, as we were looking at the client with the client, I realized that what we had as map 18 and map 19 actually should be the same map. So that's why it looks kind of funny. And I just make it go to the map, the correct artboard. And then I can, of course, use the map views thing to, no, I don't want that. It's going to the wrong artboard. Cancel that. I got the wrong artboard selected here. In any case, you know how to use the map views to rescale. So I'll rescale, and then I'll move the, once I get it the right size, but not the right position, I'll use the this to move the artboard thing to move it around. I'll adjust the scale up and down to be how I want it to be. And what I'll end up with is this. So in Illustrator, I now have areas of coverage that I'm happy with that have a little picture of the map background. I'll generate a PDF of all of these collectively and send it off to the client and say, this is what I'm thinking. And if it's different from what was on the original source maps that they provided, they'll be able to talk it through and figure out if that works for them or not before I start building the map. Because the point when you start slapping line work on there, that changes become a lot more expensive, a lot more time consuming. So once they've approved that, I have these maps here and I will start importing data. One piece I'm not going to show you in great detail is that I very much use in importing any piece of data. Pause for a second here. So I tend to use Tiger data. Tiger data is organized by county. So, for example, if I'm going to import this data, which is the bulk of the data from this map, I will want to use the spatial filter feature to keep it from giving me the entire piece. This is one of the ways we're having that filter, having that TIFF image there is really helpful in that it creates a bounding box for that layer that I can then crop to. And so it does. It takes a minute to do it, but it does it. Yeah, so that's what it looks like. It's not projected right. I did not, unfortunately. I told it to create its own layer, but if I bring it back into the correct layer here, it lines up perfectly, and it's already cropped. It doesn't, as I said, doesn't give you the entire Baltimore City street base. So I can then use that data. I'll show you a raw one that's only been partly imported. Excuse me, I'm going to show you that. Where am I? Yeah, here we go. So I've imported the data. I will then use the map selections thing to sort out roads in particular, so that I will take freeways and be able to make those bolder, maybe take major highways and do the same thing. So I can use that without having to split the layers. Sometimes on other projects I will split things by functional class. I find I don't have to do that for this one. And then I label using I just use the regular label features function rather than Label Pro. Label Pro is a lovely little tool, but actually I like to be able to make the choices about what I'm going to keep and what I'm not going to keep out of this data set. So it takes a little longer maybe, but I end up with the selection of streets that I actually want. So you can see this is in progress. I've cleaned up down here. I have not cleaned up here. And I have a map just like that. And that's how I do it. That's really all I have to say. As I say, I use pretty much all these tools one way or the other in most of my projects. MAPublisher is a terrific. It's my workhorse. I don't know what to do without it. So thanks for letting me talk to your ear off a little bit, and hope you found some bits of this to be useful for your future work. Thanks.